Hey everyone, welcome back to Great Sports Debates. Once again, we have our second edition of Power Rankings after our initial grouping. So, after a crazy week where we just got lucky to do just above even on our bets, and a lot of teams that we still feel strong lost, we're doing these power rankings with kind of a mix of how good we think the teams are, but we also have to pay attention to what the season's shown us this far. And we'll start, the bottom remains the same. That part's easy. Probably could be in a tier of their own, but we'll keep them in the bottom tier at tier 6, the basement. It's the Carolina Panthers. Now, this team played as bad as we expected, maybe even worse again. Bryce Young failed to crack 100 yards. I didn't really get to see very much of this game at all, but I mean, the Chargers beat up on them. The Saints had beat up on them the week before. Like we said, this is a team that we're going to target to bet against. We also like to bet against the under, but I will say this on the latest news. You guys know that I follow the channel. I've been as harsh a critic against Bryce Young as anybody. But can somebody please explain the move to me here of not giving him his second season with no other person that you really want to check out? I mean, the team's not going to be good. And what exactly does starting Andy Dalton do? I guess there's concerns about losing the team, but again, this is a team that's already lost. And you might as well see what you got out of the guy you paid so much to get. So even though I've been harsh on Bryce Young, not really a fan of him getting benched. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And maybe there's something I'm missing there. All right, number 31. This was pretty tough. Came down to a couple of teams, but we'll slot your New York Giants in here. I don't know that they're the second worst team, but they have an interesting fan base. I'm sure almost all Giants teams will try to convince you they're the worst team ever by far. So let's look at some bright spots. We talked about on the podcast one of the guys we like to have a big season. Neighbors already had his first 100-yard game. He's doing great despite a bad offense with a bad offensive line. And the way you guys talk about Daniel Jones, well, I agree he didn't deserve to get paid like that. You know, he has shown to be at least serviceable as well. But I don't think the Giants are going to go anywhere. They lost to one of the lower tier teams in the Redskins, and it looked like it was a game of ineptitude. I mean, I don't think one touchdown was scored that whole game. So the Denver Broncos come in at number 30. They definitely could have argued maybe a couple spots higher, maybe one spot lower. I don't know, but what I do know is that they are in the bottom tier of teams. Denver's 0-2. They struggle to do anything on offense. And again, I'm asking the people that came at me about Bo Nix, leave your comments now, please. At 29, we got the Tennessee team, and again, they played a somewhat close game. This was the second game that they were winning, and a really bad play by Will Levis looked to be the turning point. Again, I didn't see a whole lot of this game, but I know Tennessee was winning. I saw the bonehead play, and I saw the Jets were able to pull it out. Don't have high expectations for Tennessee this year. That's why we have them at number 29. Okay, moving into Tier 5, we got the Washington Commanders. This team is 1-1. They were able to beat the aforementioned New York Giants, but, I mean, it was really more of a who wanted to lose the game, if you ask me. Brian Thomas had a great game. We'd actually love to get him on here, so maybe we'll look and see if we can make that work out. But for now, there's not a whole lot to be too excited about when it comes to Washington. They have a weapon at wide receiver. They got a dual threat quarterback, although he is a rookie. If the defensive line continues to play well, they're going to be able to win some games on this year as they did last week. At number 27 is the Colts. And now, again, maybe this is too low for the Colts. We had them at 18 last week, but they are 0-2 now. They lost. They played well, but lost to Houston. And then they lost to Green Bay with Malik Willis as their quarterback. So that doesn't look like a great win or a great loss. So again, my feeling is that we have the Colts too low here, but that's where we have them right now, and they have no one to blame for themselves at 0-2. At 26, we got New England. They're 1-1. They could have easily won the game against Seattle overtime. So, again, New England's been in both games they played. They were able to upset Cincinnati week 1. They were able to play Seattle. Again, running attack, strong defense. I don't think they're going to have enough big plays to win them games. But they do have the ability to beat a team that doesn't come out and isn't ready to play against them. And they are going to give teams that struggle on run defense some trouble. Let me know what you guys think about the New England Patriots. At number 25, we got the Las Vegas Raiders. They are 1-1. They pulled off the big upset this week. I don't know how it happened. I watched a lot of this game early. You know, Baltimore was winning by 10 points in the fourth quarter, so I'm going to see if I can find out, or maybe I can rewatch this game, or at least see that fourth quarter to see how they wound up winning this game. But every time I've actually watched the Raiders, the offenses looked bad. It looks like they were able to mount a bit of a passing attack and beat a Ravens team that is now 0-2. So, Ravens fans, hit me in the comments. Let me know what's going on with this team. You know, we said with their offensive line issues there might be some concerns, but I don't think anybody was seeing 0-2 coming. Okay, at 24, we have the New York Jets. They're 1-1 now. They bounced back after getting destroyed by the 49ers and are able to squeak out a win against Tennessee. This should be a good confidence boost, and it's good to have a guy like Aaron Rodgers that you know you can trust in the clutch. And let's see what they're able to do. You know, it looked like a bad situation. You know, obviously Buffalo's going to be the team to beat in that division. Miami's without Tua for who knows how long. Maybe the Jets are a contender to sneak in the playoffs. Who knows? At 23 is the Chicago Bears, and I know they lost last week, but we're giving them a little bump up. I thought Caleb Williams played much better in his second game. In fact, he looked lights out in the first quarter. So this guy has a laser arm. He's got some athletic ability. I think it's just going to take him some time to continue to learn about defenses, learn how to handle the blitz. I think that's one of his biggest things is he's used to being able to run away from everyone in college. And as soon as he figures out, like, you know, hey, you might be able to escape here or there, but it's a lot harder to do things with your legs at level. If he continues to make leaps every week, you know, if I was a Bears fan, I'd be excited just from how he played in the first half. And it was a very tough Houston team that we expected them to lose against anyhow. So we got the Bears 1-1 at number 23. Now here's another one that people I'm sure are going to question. It seems low for Miami to drop all the way to 22. Now, you honestly could argue lower than that from the way that they showed to play and the fact of what they're going to do without Tua, because I'm not really comfortable with their quarterback situation now. There's rumors on some pickups that they may or may not have made as this video goes on that could improve the team. But, you know, Miami hasn't looked good all year in my personal opinion. Week 1, they should have lost that game to the Jags. And if it wasn't for a punch out as the guy was about to score a touchdown, they would have lost that game. The offense has not been clicking. The offensive line is too weak in the middle. You got a guard that teams are going to target. And it just makes everything have to come out fast and kind of negates the big speed that they have. A-Chain's had a really good year, but who else are you going to point to on that team? I know some Miami fans going to jump in the comments and tell us. But for me, I just don't see them as one of the better teams right now. Maybe Tua comes back at some point and the offense starts clicking and we reevaluate. But right now I got them at 22. Okay, at 21, this is another team. I'm going to say right now, I think I have them too low. But the Rams are 0-2 right now. I didn't get to see enough of that game. I tried to ask Rams fans what happened. I haven't got too much of a response. But, I expected this to be a high-scoring game. And it was on Arizona's part. So I don't know what happened to the Rams offense. I want to definitely try to catch that game and see what happened to the Rams offensively. But like I said, they're 0-2 at this point. So we got to drop them down to 21, maybe too low. But I kind of have just a group of teams right here that I expect more from, but they haven't performed on the field to this point. On that same trend at number 20, we got Jacksonville. They're 0-2 now. They weren't able to do a whole lot this week against Cleveland. We did take the Cleveland pick'em, way prior to the season, and we're glad that paid off. However, the Jags gave away a game they should have won in Miami. They lost in Cleveland. And this just questions how high-powered is this offense? And at some point, when are somebody going to point fingers at Trevor Lawrence? I rarely hear people talking about Trevor Lawrence as a problem. In fact, I hear him often as a guy that people are expecting to ascend to the next tier. And we just haven't seen that at that point. He has everything he should need around him, but it's just not clicking. I think he makes too many mistakes. And I don't know if Jacksonville is going to be a factor this year because clearly they're not the team in their division. And the rest of the division, I don't think has won a game between the rest of them. At 19, we got Cincinnati. Again, same trend. We expect more from Cincinnati. They are now, struggling. They're 0-2. They looked much better playing against Kansas City, and they gave them a run for their money. But in the end, they lost the game. So maybe at some point, Cincinnati shows who they are. I asked last week, hey, just drop in the comments. This is a team I can't figure out. At 18 is Atlanta, and I feel like this is a little too high for Atlanta, honestly, especially after the first week showing. I don't want to panic too much after one bad game against a great defense in Pittsburgh. I wish we'd see this Monday night game that comes on today before these power rankings come out. However, right now we got Atlanta 0-1 at 18. This was one team that looks like we missed on. We expected them to maybe win 10 games and possibly sneak into the playoffs. And the Kirk Cousins experiment did not look good week 1. So let's see how they do against another strong team in Philly before we kind of write the book on the Falcons. At 17 is Cleveland. They had a bit of a bounce back. Again, like I mentioned, I didn't get to see too much of that game against the Jags, but they were ahead kind of from start to finish in that game. And it was a good bounce back after getting blown out in week 1. At number 16, we got the Chargers. I feel like this is too high, honestly, for the Chargers. They are 2-0. That's the first part. I mean, the competition they've played so far, not great to say the least. So the Chargers could definitely be too high at 16. But we got to give them credit for being 2-0 because there's only a handful of 2-0 teams. At 15, same category, we got Seattle. Again, not good competition so far. Haven't looked great. Don't expect them to do anything this year. But they are 2-0 right now. This is probably as high as they get in the rankings, but they're undefeated for right now. Okay, number 14, Baltimore fans. This is going to be a divisive pick. Baltimore fans are going to be in the comments saying, no, they're not a middle-of-the-road team. And everyone else is going to say, how do you have this team that's 0-2 at number 14? Well, let me explain. Baltimore's offensive line, we knew was going to be a problem this year. You lose 3 starters and, you downgrade in all those positions. You don't expect things to go great. From what I saw against them in the Raiders, they were able to run the ball, though. They still have Lamar. They have a good defense. I don't know what happened in that fourth quarter. So maybe when I see that fourth quarter, that'll affect my judgment. I know definitely losing to the Raiders definitely impacted my judgment. It's one thing when you lose opening night to the Kansas City Chiefs, but to drop a game right after that to the Raiders, that's just bad news. Bad news. But we're giving Baltimore the benefit of the doubt. This is a team that's always good. They got a lot of playmakers all over the field. And we're going to give the Ravens the benefit of the doubt at least one more week. On that same trend at number 13, maybe too low, I feel a little bit too low, is the Dallas Cowboys. Now, we had the Cowboys at 5 after their big blowout win against Cleveland that we predicted and we told people to bet money line on. Well, this week they definitely cost us some money because we expected them to be able to handle business against the Saints, and they got their butts kicked. It wasn't close. The Saints scored on them every possession. I know at some point in the fourth quarter when they're just running the ball to run the clock out, they punted. But every real offensive possession, they scored on. So I don't know how much that reflects on Dallas and how much that reflects on the Saints, but I'm giving credit both ways here. Dallas is number 13 here, maybe too low. We'll see how they do next week. At 12 is Green Bay. Now, we actually moved Green Bay up. I know they beat the Colts. That isn't a super powerhouse team, but they were an underdog, and they did it with a backup, and a backup that I was concerned about because every game I've seen him play so far, he hasn't looked good. But he put up decent enough numbers, and Green Bay was able to hold on for the win, and that's a testament to how strong this team is. So I got the Pack at number 12. Okay, at number 11, continuing to slide up the rankings, the ugliest team this high in the rankings, but 2-0 and getting it done on the defensive side of the ball is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I took my advice that I mentioned before, this week's betting rounds and said, hey, if you think about betting against the Steelers, just say TJ Watt. And I did that, and we won multiple bets with Pittsburgh hitting at -2.5, hitting at -3, hitting the under. They all around helped us win a nice little 3-bet combo and keep us on the positive side this week. All right, number 10 is the Detroit Lions. And honestly, this is probably too high for the Lions. Definitely if we're just going off what we've seen so far. Week 1, they were able to pull out a win against the Rams, but the defense got shredded. And then this week against Tampa Bay, I was really disappointed. We knew Tampa has a strong run defense, but they weren't able to run the ball well against Tampa, and the passing game still looks bad, and Goff just had a few just really bad throws that didn't make sense. So Detroit is definitely a team I'm concerned about. I know they played, two teams we thought were going to be pretty tough with Tampa Bay and the Rams, but they're definitely probably the worst looking team we're going to see in this top 10 for sure. Okay, at number 9, we got the Arizona Cardinals. I guarantee this is higher than anybody else has them, but we got to look at the facts. They're dropping like 30 points in both of their games. They jumped out on Buffalo. Buffalo was able to come back and beat them, and they jumped on the Rams and ended that game quick, just busting out with offense. Murray's looking as good as he ever has. I think he had a perfect passer rating in that game. He's able to run and buy time and pick up yardage with his feet, and he's hitting some big-time bombs. And the emergence of Harrison Jr. that we talked about might happened in a huge way early. So this team definitely looks explosive on the offensive end, and their offense looks so good we had to have them up to at least number 9. Okay, at 8 is San Francisco. This is probably the one I'm the most concerned with, because honestly, I don't think that I would bet against them versus 7 other teams. But they are 1-1, and they did get beat by the Vikings again. It wasn't particularly close. 49ers closed the gap late. Didn't get to see a lot of that game, unfortunately. I know they don't have all their pieces. but you expect San Francisco to win that game. I have them at 8 now at 1-1, maybe too low. We still have a lot of faith in the 49ers. At 7 is Philly. Again, maybe too low. They're 1-0. We've only seen them 1 week. Not super impressive when they played Green Bay, but we have them in the same slot we had them last week. Okay, at number 6, probably too high. You know, we definitely don't trust Sam Darnold, but he did it again. He looked great again. Minnesota's 2-0. They just beat one of the teams pretty much everyone thinks is one of the best teams in football. And you have to give them credit. They got arguably one of the top wide receivers. They made a ton of free agent moves this year, and we talked about that a lot in the podcast in the offseason with, despite losing Kirk Cousins, if they have any decent quarterback play, they were going to be good with the moves they made. Yeah, they lost Cousins, and yeah, they lost Hunter, but they also brought a ton of guys in, and it's looking to pay off so far. All right, into the top 5 Tier 1 teams now. We have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Okay, Tampa Bay has just been rolling. They've looked good against everyone they played. Baker really has command of this offense. He's got weapons all around. Mike Evans is a guy you can just throw the ball up to. They clearly have a chemistry where you can see a nod and a look and making adjustments on the fly. Plus you have Goodwin and you have a strong offensive line, and the defense has a lot of speed. So, they made the playoffs last year, and they won a game in the playoffs last year, and they're 2-0. So don't blink. Tampa Bay, top 5, maybe too high, but they're looking really good right now. Okay, number 4 is Buffalo. Josh Allen pretty much lost all of his wide receivers last year, and yet they're still 2-0, and he's still putting up points, and he's still able to do it with his arm and his feet. They look tough so far. Clearly the class of their division right now. Hitting the top 3, we got Houston. Houston beat Chicago. They missed the cover by half a point, but they definitely controlled this game. The offense looked good despite not scoring a whole lot of points. They had an injury at running back, but they looked to be okay there. And then on the defensive side, they showed up and played better than they did week 1. You have the bookends with Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. And the most important thing about Houston is the coaching. You can see they make adjustments on the fly. They saw Caleb Williams was 11 of 12 at one point and playing pretty impressively with no blitz. And then they blitzed more than they have ever in one of his games when he saw the difference. So, again, in-game adjustments, coaching, personnel, and C.J. Stroud looks to be that guy, and they're able to run the ball. This is going to be a tough team to beat. Okay, at number 2, this might be controversial in some people's minds, and I know most people aren't going to agree with it, but if you just based it on how they've looked through 2 weeks, this team would be clearly number 1. The Saints' offense is scoring, and they're scoring good. And I know people are not believing in David Carr, and I'm not saying I'm completely on that bandwagon yet, but what I do remind people of, he's put together some MVP-type seasons when he's had time to throw the ball and he's had weapons around him. And he's got weapons everywhere. Kamara can run and catch the ball, and they have running backs that can spell him. They got a guy like Jamal Williams that's more of the short yardage specialist. They got a young wide receiver in Olave. They got the other wide receiver leading their team in yardage who's made a step up each year he's played. And they got rid of the Michael Thomas attitude and pay with no production. And the defense was already good, and they added pieces like the Honey Badger. Looking pretty strong all the way around. We said before, hey, if the Saints had some time in protection and maybe a better quarterback piece, they could be a top team. Well, look at it now. They were able to steal one of the blue chip top offensive tackle prospects in the first round this year. And the guy that didn't look so great that they drafted, the year before, he's got another year under his belt. So far, the Saints look lights out, so don't blame me for having them at number 2 right now. And then at number 1, even though they escaped with a win, and they haven't looked like the most dominant team so far, Kansas City has the track record. They're the team we've had on top. They've won back-to-back Super Bowls. They have Pat Mahomes. Rice is looking to be the weapon of choice. Kelsey might be on the decline, but they clearly still have a connection. And then you got the playmakers across each level on the defense. The Chiefs know when it's playoff time. I feel like you always know when they need to score. You almost feel like they're going to do it. So that's what I got for this week's power rankings. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Like, subscribe if you appreciate the video. And as always, thanks for watching.